Awesome. Well, I will get started here then, so you guys can get back to your creating. So I'm Jenny. I'm CEO of Talofa Games, and today I'll be talking about building communities. So I am very curious, though, what you all are most interested in hearing about. Of course, I have my slides, but I would love to focus in on what you guys also might be experiencing or communities you might want to build, because I've definitely got lessons from my own game that I've built a community for. But I guess from the audience, is there already stuff you guys are interested in learning regarding community?
It'd be really cool to learn when to start building communities. So I wanted to build a Web3 game, and I wasn't sure when to start dropping alpha, when to start building, putting the name out there versus when to build it, and what stage of building should I start building a community.
Yeah, that one is great. We just went through that, so I can totally cover that. Was there somebody else?
I think I'm almost just looking for a sense of what community means in Web3, because everyone says community, but I don't know if that means the DAO or the community of people who are using your product or the investors, or there's so many different subgroups of communities that I'm just interested in how to manage all of those and what it kind of rolls up to.
Yeah, no, awesome question. Cool, then without further ado, I will give a quick intro on myself. So for me, I've been building games since I was 12, so I started out just doing the art, animation, all of that. I started in the Flash game era. Don't know how many of you guys made Flash games, but I was a very OG Flash person and ended up creating over 130 little Flash animations, Flash experiences before I went to college, and I ended up making 10 mobile games that got 10 million downloads and realized that maybe gaming is something I'm okay at. So ended up going to MIT to study computer science and also was recruited onto their cross-country track and field team. So really loved fitness, really loved game development, and got to combine them for the first time when I ended up graduating early. And there was this Niantic competition. They made Pokemon Go. I was able to participate in that together with my dad. So the two of us were on a small team. We went up against teams of 10, 20 people, legit studios. We ended up winning the whole thing, got a kind of cash prize of $300,000, which is pretty good because we didn't spend a lot of time. But that was really what gave me the confidence to jump in and become a full-time game founder, game creator, because the gaming industry is kind of a newer career path, I'd say. I didn't think about going into the gaming industry until I was able to win that contest and got kind of the confidence that I could do it. So we ended up working with Niantic for about a year and a half. They mentored us, got to learn how to make really great fitness games, and went independent. End of last year, raised some VC money, and now we're here, building full-time, and been in operation now for about 3 years. So I got really lucky, ended up being Forbes 30 under 30. Who knows what that means, but definitely over time. But just over time, really felt myself grow more into the gaming industry. So I'm happy to chat more about gaming, getting into the industry. I come more from the gaming side, I'd say, than the Web3 side. So a lot of what I'll be talking about is how to build games from the ground up, and of course also what I've learned from being in Web3 for about the last kind of year or so. So other things I like outside of gaming is anime, K-pop, and memes. So if you guys like any of those, happy to chat about that too. Cool, so what I thought you guys could probably get out of this is tips on how to build community. And we have experience kind of growing our game personally from really a dead server, no one talking, 200 people, to now over, I wrote this slide deck, or I updated it yesterday at 12,000, but now we have 14,000. So it keeps changing, and it's crazy to see how quickly things can grow in Web3. So definitely a lot of lessons learned and mistakes we've made, and I would love to help answer any questions because every community is different. So I think just being able to give any advice I can. Cool. So at Talofa, what we're building is a fitness battle game. So I don't know how many of you play like Pokemon Go or even the newer things like Step In or Walk In or Geno Pets, but we're trying to do something a little different. We're making a fitness battle game where you move to win, and it's a combination of kind of like co-op, synchronous multiplayer, and walking and running gamification. So definitely check it out. It's free to play for now, so you can go on our website and play it. We would love any feedback that you guys have. So kind of going back, taking another step back, where we started, even just earlier this year, I am a crazy person. I like to checkpoint where we are every week and see our stats. So we kind of started this project about a year ago. So August 2021 is when we started building the game. So to answer your question about when to start building community, we decided beginning of this year would be a great time to start building the community, which I actually think, looking back, was a little too early. We had a community that was 100 people, friends and family who I guilted into joining our Discord. And really, it was super hard, actually, to even add even 50 more people over the course of 6 months. And I think in this period of time, I was going crazy. I was I guess no one likes our game. It's so hard to build community when you don't really have the infrastructure set up for it. So I'd say definitely take your time on building a community, because once you have it, then you're no longer spending all your time building the game or your app. You're spending a lot of time invested emotionally into the growth of your community. And it was very sad, seeing all these red numbers. But I think this time was really interesting because we were doing a lot of Web2 marketing approaches at this point. We were DMing people on Instagram. I looked up competitor apps. I was DMing people. I was hey, I know you like playing Zombies Run. Would you want to play our game? And I got probably only 20 people to respond, and I was spending hours DMing people. So that was not very scalable. But they always say do things that don't scale at the very beginning. So I tried it, and it wasn't actually very helpful. So really, this is what I'll chat more about, but just in the last 6 weeks, we kind of had this crazy moment in September where we started figuring out what actually works and kind of have been doing that ever since. So it's kind of gone up and to the right, luckily, and it wasn't even a thing that changed with the game. Honestly, nothing changed with the game. The feature set has basically stayed the same for the last 6 weeks. So all it is community growth, and that's what's changed. Awesome. So a couple topics I'll chat about. Number one is Discord. I'm sure you all know that's where most of the Web3 gaming communities in general live. And then I'll talk about the importance of mods, automating things so you don't do everything yourself, just fun stuff you can do to engage your community, partnerships, which is a big deal in Web3, just our Web3 strategy, key things that you should keep in mind, mistakes we've made, which are really fun, final thoughts, and I'll open it up for Q&A. Awesome. So for Discord, definitely we did a split approach at the very beginning. When we were making this game, we were okay, let's try TikTok, let's try Twitter, let's try Instagram, let's try literally everything. And Discord was the one that ended up working. So we now are focusing most of our efforts on Discord. I think TikTok is okay, but honestly, it is really high effort. So unless you're willing to make a video every day, keep up the algorithm, Discord's a lot nicer, so we focus mainly on Discord. It's definitely a place where we also use as our central hub, so all official links, everything is through Discord. Every other channel is linking into Discord, so definitely recommend that. And it's really important to use this as your early user base, people who support you. And I think over time too, as you get more and more people, you'll start to see changing audiences. So you want to constantly interview people, why they're staying, who they are. And this is what we're doing as well. We're doing one-on-one chats with people to figure out why they're even here. One other thing that's important is, especially as you get to the larger stages, we started looking for mods about when we hit the 1,000 member mark. So under that, I don't think you need mods, but once you hit a 1,000 user mark or so, maybe even 500, you want to start asking for community moderators. It's surprising how much you can actually get out of your community without actually needing to pay anyone. Like, these are just people who care enough about your game or product that they're willing to do it for free. And it is important, though. Like, we had a form that was like, you understand it's not paid. And that's very important within Web3 too, because I'd say there's a lot of people who might DM you, ask for compensation, but they don't actually care. So this is one way that we filtered and made sure that people actually care about what you're building and what you're doing. And it's just really important to get that all laid out at the start. One thing about Web3 I found is that there's a lot of international people that will come and try what you're building. So you just need to make sure everything's written out in very clear English, easy to understand, easy to really just check yes, I know. And this is a very important resource as well. Your mods, you'll grow with them, so just choose wisely. We ended up, I think from our initial, we like put out a application form for people, I think got 40 or so responses and chose, I think 12 people to choose as our initial moderators. So we weren't super strict. We weren't like, we will only have a few. We were just like, everyone who seems decent, let's like try it out, make sure they know their responsibilities. So that is community mods. Third thing that you should do, like as you start to grow, or even earlier, is just build in automations for your community. Like we had, like the amount of weird messages I see in our Discord is honestly crazy. But it's really nice to start giving those mods permissions to delete things, ban members. We go in and ban people who seem to be just cross-promoting their stuff in our community and weird stuff. So it's really good to just have bots set up. Some that I really like are carl.gg. Arcane is really good for tracking who's inviting who. And there's even just built-in stuff within Discord, like slowdown modes and automod. So I would just check those out. They're built in. And even the ones that aren't built in, they're all free. And they've probably saved me a couple hours. So definitely check those out. Fun things that you can do, I'd say in building our game and building our community, when we are at the 200-person mark and literally nothing was happening, it was a very dry and boring place to be. And one thing that is really important for any Discord is the fact that this is where some of your users will be like 24/7 or for hours a day. So you want to make sure at any given time there's something for them to do, whether it's playing a demo of your game, interacting with something in your server, like a mini game that you've set up, or like doing some like Twitter raid or liking things. They should just have something to do that engages them, keeping them reminded about what actually exists in your community. And what we've done is also run these things called like challenges or contests. We'll give away like something small, like $30, and just tell people like, oh, if you get the score within our game, you'll be entered in a raffle to get $30. And it's very, very simple to set up and do, but people will stay engaged, it'll be interesting for them, and it's not a lot of expense on your part. We also do like weekly updates, so I'll always record something on Loom, send it out to the community, just keep them on top of things. And in Web3 as well, I think people just want to know that you're a legit person. So having that Loom video was really helpful because people would know that, like, hey, I'm real, I care, and I'm talking, and I'm mentioning community members. I've heard from the community that whenever I say their name, they are honored. So these videos are a really low effort way to make your community feel seen. And yeah, I'd say one thing that we've also seen that's really worked is AMAs. People have a lot of questions. I'd say be really maybe cautious about AMAs in some sense because you don't want to give away too much, especially in your Web3 strategy. It's got legal implications and risk, but you can be vague, you can answer people's concerns. Just make sure that they feel heard. Some kind of final things here. Partnerships. This is actually the way that we were able to scale the most. So we get a lot of partnership requests in general. The moment you start announcing your game on social media or you start talking about it, you might get kind of emails or Twitter messages that look like this, or it's just Twitter influencers trying to contact you. It is very important that you partner only with people that seem legit, and you don't just partner with anyone, even if you're at the early stages. Like, we got a lot of partnership requests from like sketchy looking people that had a lot of followers, but it wasn't clear if their communities were actually interested or they're all just like speculators or all just want to get in and get out really quick. So don't partner too early. I'd say only partner when you've got your community set up. Everyone, your mods are set up too, so they can also handle inbound requests. and then you can start thinking about partnerships. And definitely make sure you have a pipeline, so you're like talking to people, interviewing them, making sure they're not just scammers and trying to hurt your community. And then from there, like we have 2 partnerships right now, both of them really awesome. I think one of them was the source of 5,000 community members. So it's like truly really cool what Web3 partnerships can do for you. Yes, and this one is probably not legit. Some other Web3 specific things to look at when you're starting a community. One thing that I found is really powerful is that people seem to really like being early. We didn't know this until we started opening up our Discord, but like every day, I think when we first opened our Discord, every message said, how to early, am I early? And we were like, what do you mean? So we like Google searched it, like figured out what it meant. And what was really powerful when we went from 200 to 1,000 was saying, okay, the first 1,000 people get early. And then everyone came in, it was super popular. But we did have to clarify, like, early means nothing. Like, all it is it's a cosmetic role that lets you, it's a cosmetic role, doesn't get you an NFT, doesn't get you anything special. So just be upfront and clear, because there are some communities where early will mean like a mint or an allow list spot, but we didn't want that to be the case. So if it's not the case, just say it, because people will be upset if you don't clarify. And one important thing with a game is that your goal behind a community is never just to build up a community and have the numbers, it's to actually play the game. So it doesn't matter how many early members you have, if the early members aren't incentivized to play the game or do anything in the server, then maybe it's too early to do early. And also don't release a white paper too early, don't release whitelist spots too early, because the moment you do, I think it comes with a lot of baggage. So just be super clear on your strategy, super clear on your game design and stuff before you start announcing things like that. And yeah, just some final little things that you guys should remember is that it's almost inevitable somebody will try to scam or spam your server. So safety is key. Turn on your servers to the highest security settings. People will probably try to impersonate you or any admin or try to get you to click on fishy links. So one thing that I heard from one of my friends who also runs a Web3 startup is that you can create a highest privilege account that you never log into. You just put at the top of your server, you log out of it, never log back in, and you just use your admin account, but it's like a lower level account. So nobody can ever scam that highest level account into like clicking on a fishy link. So you keep that there as like a safeguard, never log into it. Well, you have access, so if you do need to use it one day, you should. But that's one way to keep your account always secure, because like no matter how smart you are, these like scammers are really smart these days too. So I hear the scams usually come like when you're around the 10K to 20K mark. So if you're not there yet, you might not have to worry as much, but as the bigger you grow, the more you'll get targeted by phishing or attacks. So just make sure you keep that in mind. And one thing that I've learned as well is that international communities are really different from a single language community. Like in all my years of game development, I've only worked with English communities, so super unprepared for the influx of Russian players, Ukrainian players, Korean players, Chinese players. Like I'd say our community right now is like 15% Russian, 15% Korean, and there's like a couple other communities and languages spread out too. But because of that, the mods are incredibly important. You need mods that you trust in those languages to moderate, because otherwise you don't know what they're talking about in another language, and you need people to translate what you're saying into English or from English into their language so that they know like what you're talking about. The AMA, they'll translate it for you. So just make sure that you keep in mind like that international people, they exist and they want to be heard, they want to participate, but oftentimes they'll be going through your mods. So just be wary of that and have the right mods. Final thing is, when you are also building an international community, it's going to be 24/7. In terms of your community, it's going to be popping like all hours of the night. I know ours was like the first time it started to pop off when we were at like the 2,000 mark. I was like on there all day, and it was crazy, and I felt really validated because people loved the game, but also it's taking so much time. So offboarding that to like a community manager that you bring onto your team or the volunteer mods is going to be really important. So you're actually focusing on the game too, and not just the community. Okay, so the fun part is mistakes we've made. So this is my first time building a Web3 gaming community, so I made a lot of mistakes. One thing was that I didn't know like things like early, things like OG role. Those are all things that I learned along the way, and setting those expectations like reactively instead of proactively made it so we had a lot of long nights, like trying to respond to users who are curious, like what do all these things mean, setting it up after the fact instead of like beforehand. So definitely had a lot of like people who were just curious and wondering like what these things were. So I wish I had the answers a lot earlier. And I didn't have a dedicated community manager until we hit about the 2,000 community member mark. So you want to have one of these maybe even at the start, like if one of your team members wants to be a dedicated community manager. Like I never thought it'd be a full-time role, but it feels like it slowly is becoming one. And one thing that you should do too is that you should not have your DMs on or tell people turn their DMs off, because you just get flooded with like all these people who oftentimes are very needy, and they'll like threaten you and unfriend you if you don't respond. So just get in front of all of that by turning off DMs in your server, having people post things in public channels, allow your mods to help you. Cool, so final thoughts. As I said earlier, community really should be towards a goal. Like it's really fun to have a large community, but if it's not for getting feedback on your game, testing your product market fit, for actually driving interest in your game, you're probably going to find yourself spending a lot of time on something that isn't actually going back into your product. And it's not something that should be an afterthought either. I think we actually treated it too much like an afterthought when we first launched it. We were like, we're going to build our game and then launch our community. And now we're seeing like people are leaving a ton of feedback, like people are just wanting to be involved in the development process. So I wish I had maybe ask them for more questions earlier on in development, but also not trying to, I think, scale it as much as we did as early. So I guess use community to help you develop, maybe have a pretty developed game, but allow your community to still change your mind in terms of your roadmap. Like don't lock in a roadmap, allow your community to help you decide what to do. And one thing that I've learned a lot in Web3 is that it's totally okay to make mistakes. I think we've done a lot of stuff where our community has like been outraged or they're like, what are you doing? But we eventually sort it out, and there's a lot of things that you can just, you can win your community's trust by just being transparent and open about anything you're doing. And they'll usually forgive you. But it's definitely a field that I see like things are just coming out every day, so you can never predict and have a perfect strategy. So just be flexible and see what your community wants. And I think the best parts is always when people play your games. And for us, it's a fitness game. So seeing that the community is getting healthier, seeing that they actually care about the game, that it's making their bellies go away is, I think for me, the most fulfilling part about not only building the game, but having a community that is talking about it even pre-release. So yeah, that's all I've got in terms of the aspect where I talk at you, but I'm happy to take any questions or help with any community building questions you might have. Yes, your hand. You can always reach me at my email or on Telegram or my Twitter.
How did you select the people that you would decide to interview, and then how did you go about interviewing them? Did you do like Zoom? Did you just DM them? How did you go about that?
Yeah, so a couple criteria we used in interviewing mods. One, we had a question about like how many times have you played our game? It's because we're making a game, we just care the most that our mods love our game. So anytime somebody said I only played it once, like is an auto reject from our end. And other things I asked them were like, hey, why are you interested in being a mod? Some were like, oh, because is good project, we'll go to the moon. I'm like, no, that also seems a little bit maybe not the right intentions. So the people I looked for were like, I love like Move to Earn, or I think there's a lot of potential in this project. Like I love playing it, I want to help the community, or I want to grow as a moderator. Like people who are willing to grow and seem like genuinely interested in the game. Also, I look for people who had prior moderating experience. So I asked people like, hey, what servers have you modded in the past? If they were newer, it was okay, but I mostly went for pretty experienced mods too. And then the way I interviewed them was I set up like a private channel between all our admins and the person, and I essentially reiterated the responsibilities, asked them like, hey, do you have any questions? And then kind of followed up with them. But it wasn't a very rigorous process. Didn't call them. I think because a lot of our mods were not native English speakers, I think it made them more comfortable to just talk through text.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Talking about the contest, so when I was doing the project, I thought like, well, that's my community. They shouldn't do much. Just come hit a like and you're gonna win something. But it is true when it's very manual. They just come like that. They get the prize, but there's no engagement. If you can talk a little bit on how you make it more fun and how you get the engagement out of them for the giveaways.
Yeah. So good question. One mistake we made too was in the beginning doing like a very low engagement contest, like invite a friend and get on the leaderboard. But that's like people can do like join for joins. So you get very low quality users and no engagement in the game. So we just control contests by making them high effort in the game. So like the current contest we have is like you join with a team, and since it's a multiplayer game, you have to play together at the same time. So you play together, you get a score in the game, and like post your score every day to get on the leaderboard. So it's like high effort. If they do it, they're literally like engaging in the highest, like most core part of our game. And we want to reward that kind of no matter what. And because we don't have like rewarding in the game itself, we use these extrinsic rewards like $30 gift certificate. And that seems to have worked well. Like as long as you're paying them for something that is related to your game, I think it's usually not, or you actually get pretty good turnout. But the eventual goal is that you don't have to pay them and they still engage in a contest. So that's like the key goal. Like we are doing a lot of these like $30 giveaways because we don't have things like that. The moment we have things like whitelist roles and the moment we have even just tokens or NFTs to give out, those should replace like straight cash prizes because they're feeding into your ecosystem. So we'll definitely move away from cash once you're ready to.
I have a little bit more of a general question about how to bridge the gap between gamers and Web3, because a lot of gamers seem to be very hostile to the concepts in general. So I'm kind of interested to know how you got from the gaming community in general into the Web3 community.
Yeah. So one thing that at least being from the gaming side, like I just believe in making good games. And I think that one thing that we do in our community that is really maybe what's also helped people who maybe aren't interested in crypto be interested in our game is the fact that we're saying that the game will always be free to play. Like you don't have to touch the crypto side if you don't want to. And it'll be fun, maybe more fun for you if you do. So that aspect is key for me as a game developer, is like making the free experience or free to play experience as fun as possible. And then the Web3 side is just adding on, making it more fun if they choose to engage in it. So I think that's what's made it maybe more easy for crypto skeptics to stomach the idea of Web3, and also easier for me as a game developer to like see the value of it. Is like you can't make a unfun game fun with Web3, or that's when it's a Ponzi scheme. But if the game intrinsically itself is fun, and you're just adding more ways for them to like take out assets, trade, earn value if they're really skilled in the game, then I believe it makes a more sustainable product overall. So yeah, I'd say intrinsic motivation as much as possible within the game mechanic that you've built, and then layering on extrinsic rewards when you feel like you've got that down is how I've approached it.
So you mentioned that you allow the community to share feedback. How are you managing the feedback collection process, determining which feedback to move forward with, and communicating back not only the feedback that you're going to accept from the community, but the feedback that you're not going to accept from the community?
Yeah, so we are using this thing called Discord forums, which are a newer feature that came out, but it just makes it really easy for people to create threads, essentially. So yeah, we have a feedback forum that people just like post feedback in. Usually we'll respond and be like, oh, that's a great idea, like we'll think about it, to any feedback. So you just want people to feel heard. And then the moment we decide to implement their feedback, it's usually because we've gotten the same theme a couple times. Like we see people saying like, oh, this enemy is way too hard, and there's like 20 of them. We're like, okay, let's try to fix that. So once we fix it, we'll like release a new build, and we'll remember which posts people posted that said like enemy is too hard, and just go back into that thread and be like, hey, heard your feedback, we updated it, go check it out. So people like having follow-up, like the moment you actually do respond, or the moment you do implement their feedback, you should go back, close the loop. And it's made a lot of people kind of reactivate too if they stop playing for a while, because they're like, oh, my feedback got implemented.
So it's kind of weird, like I guess because I'm still new to the Web3 community, it's kind of weird to have like people who are in the Discord all the time. And like, what are they doing in the Discord all the time as opposed to like they're only running sometimes, right? It's kind of weird that they're living in the Discord more than they're actually using your game. Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's like really funny. They'll just like go into the GN greetings channel and say GM. They're probably in multiple Discords at a time too, but yeah, people just be talking in like I'll see people in like the Ukrainian channel like talking about other products too, like just chatting, being like, oh, this one is different because of this reason. And I think it's interesting because they'll still play the game, but yeah, that might be only 20 minutes of their day. The rest of the time, they're also like some community members will like go and help others that have questions. And I think it makes them feel good to like know that they're helping newer users come in, and they'll also like just be reacting to stuff or reading stuff. I think we also try to give them content to interact with. So like a Twitter post comes out, we cross-post in Discord. Something comes out, we're like, we partnered with this thing, like go check out their thing. So it's just like you also going in and like every couple hours, like adding something for them to interact with too.
And then also, like, you guys made a huge jump like in the last 2 weeks, and you had like a new partner. What did you guys do? Because it went from like 150 to like a lot.
Yeah, it was launching our partnerships. So like having we had a couple of people just like tweet about us, and then once you're out there in like the Twitter world, people start like tweeting everywhere. So it was like some explosion of Twitter posts, and then this particular partnership that we did essentially just like blew up, and then people start I think the moment like a big partnership occurs, you'll start like getting reached out to by other partnership opportunities. They'll start tagging their friends. So it was really just like almost like a thing that happened where people just like retweeted a lot, and it became like a viral loop. Yeah.
To that point, how long did it take you to kind of work on that partnership? What was the kind of cycle from you thinking about, oh, that'd be a great company or group to work with, and then come to fruition?
Yeah, so we had started working with this group back in September, so it's been about a month and a half, and they were also young. So I'd say the most beneficial partnerships are when you're both around the same size and they're hungry for users or hungry for partnerships. So we ended up like working together, launched our first partnership, which was we would give out early roles and they would give out their early roles. So like we did a early role swap. That one was okay. I think we got a couple hundred people to join from that. And then they like went back and they're like, okay, we want to figure out a new partnership. So we talked about that for maybe 1 or 2 weeks. And then last week they hit launch on it. And what we found was that I think Crew 3 is actually a really good viral tool. So I'd look into Crew 3. That's the one that we ended up using that became very helpful, because it gives you essentially a list of tasks for people in your community to do. And you can assign rewards, like a role, special role, that they can get at the end of it. Or you can do like a whitelist role, up to you. Or you can give them cash prizes. But we had heard about the tool about 2 weeks ago and finally decided to use it last week. And that's what brought in the thousands of people. So, yeah.
How do you spell that?
Crew 3, like CREW and then the number 3. It's like crew3.xyz.
What do you think coming out? What do you think is coming out next with Run Legends that you're super excited about?
Yeah, I'm excited about, we're like trying to introduce a competitive mode into the game. It's like having leaderboards, tournaments that players can participate in, and I think that's like a very good end game loop for players is the PvP aspect. A lot of our game is PvE right now, so it's very cooperative, fun, but there isn't much to, I'd say, get people to stick around. So the PvP element that we're going to launch soon is going to be crucial to like both our long-term engagement and I'd say allow us to do things like reward people at the top of the leaderboard with an NFT, for example. So I think that'll be a really key moment for us in terms of like community building as well as like game retention. Yeah, any other questions? Or if you just have questions about the gaming industry too.
What chain is it on?
We are doing multi-chain. So we are going to be on Avalanche and also on Sui.
What's stopping me from like strapping my hardware to my dog and just sending him in the backyard to rack up points?
No, that's a good question. And I say that's what sets the game apart from maybe something like a step-in is that the game requires you to strategically change your pace. So if you go faster, you're like activating a fireball after 10 seconds. If you go slower, you'll be healing your teammates after 20 seconds. So, I mean, your dog can probably like do a random walk and maybe you do well, but because it is more strategic, you might end up sabotaging your team. So I'd say that aspect is a little harder to cheat unless you programmed a Roomba to go faster and slower at the right time. Yeah.
Have you partnered with any like fitness food or meal plan companies yet?
Not yet, but business partnerships are stuff that we're looking into, like as we're getting closer to our global launch. So, yeah, good idea.
Why did you guys have to go like Web3? Or why couldn't you just be a game on Web2?
Yeah, so a couple of reasons why we went Web3 is that the fitness gaming space, I'd say, is something that's actually been pretty small in Web 2. Like Pokemon Go is probably the biggest game that's existed in the fitness gaming space. And I think a lot of it is due to the fact that like fitness games itself is like a very like niche industry. But for some reason, like fitness has always been something that people feel more motivated to do with money. It's like you pay for your races, you pay to like go to the gym, stuff like that. So the moment Step-In came out, it was like, okay, fitness gaming can be so powerful to get people to work out if they're also getting like some extrinsic rewards. So I think that we tested the game out a lot, like using just Web 2 marketing strategies. We're like, does anyone want a new innovative fitness game? And the answer was only 200 people. And the moment we were like, hey, we're gonna like try to do this like move to earn thing right, and we're gonna take our game as it exists, but add on this additional like Web3 layer, a lot more people are interested. They're like, this is something I can see like actually getting me to move, and like adding on this like potential to earn from it will actually change my life. So that to us was like a very validating thing. And because we had tested it for 6 months with the Web 2 side, and then the moment we announced the Web3 stuff, it was like people love the game and they love the fact that it's on a or it has the potential to earn. That is what made us like make the complete switch and be like, okay, there's a lot of potential here. I couldn't catch the whole question. But.
I haven't played the game, but have you guys ever got user feedback of saying the game is too complicated, or like what you guys do with it?
Yeah, so we do get feedback that the game is too complicated, like already by having game mechanics that happen while you're running that require you to change your pace. You're not just accumulating distance. Like, it's already way more complicated than like your Strava or step-in experience. So essentially what we do is try to filter out, like, are these people who think it's too complex because they would rather play a game that is more about just accumulating distance. Like, in that case, like, maybe they should be using Strava or something else instead. They're probably not our target audience. The ones that we care about are the ones who are like, this game is too complex, like, I really want to learn how to use my skills, or I tried really hard to defeat the enemy, but I had no idea what the sound meant. It's more like trying to dig into, like, is it complex because they actually tried to understand it and couldn't, or is it too complex because it's not what they expected and maybe not what they even want in a fitness game. So that's how we kind of differentiate, and we have simplified it a lot because of user feedback.
Thank you. Also, another question. For now, which kind of like user target group are you guys on right now? Like crypto natives, or even just like from Web 2?
Yeah, so right now the game is like fully free to play. So our audience is, I'd say probably, there are a lot of people just interested in move to earn who are playing, but in those people, I'd say it's people who are like casual walkers who are most interested in playing the game, like people who are more like the couch to 5K people than the like super athletic like Strava people. So in terms of like fitness level, I'd say on the beginner side. In terms of crypto experience, like I'd say early to mid, because if they're intense, there's nothing for them to do in the game right now. So it really doesn't attract those types of people. But if they're like interested or curious, they found out about our game because they saw it on some tweet, then they'll join and try our game. I've also had people who, yeah, don't know about the crypto piece, just wanted to find a healthier app, and they're also playing it.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, if you guys don't have any other questions, I am reachable at my email. And yeah, I just love this gaming industry, gaming intersection with fitness. So happy to also help you build your communities. Like, I've seen a lot at this point. I will probably see more in the months leading up to our launch. So I'm happy to share whatever I've learned, because I got here because of asking a lot of people for help.